The trash can was nothing special, dented old and tucked behind a row of abandoned houses on the edge of town. But when Rex, a retired 9, stopped in front of it, his ears twitched and his paw began to scratch. His handler, Frank Miller, thought nothing of it at first, just another quirk of an aging dog. But that moment, that single paw against rusted metal, would unravel a mystery that had haunted the town for over a decade. Frank Miller had served as a police officer for over 20 years. His partner, Rex, a German shepherd with unmatched instincts, was the kind of dog other officers trusted with their lives. Together, they had taken down drug operations, tracked dangerous suspects, and even saved missing children. But time catches everyone, even heroes. When Rex's muzzle turned gray and his pace slowed, the department retired him. Frank kept Rex at home, not just as a pet, but as family. Though retired, Rex never truly stopped being a 9. His eyes still scanned, his ears still perked at unusual sounds, and every walk with Frank carried the weight of an old habit, always searching. One chilly evening, Frank took Rex for a walk near an old neighborhood that had been half abandoned since the factory closed down. Rex sniffed the air alert, then suddenly he pulled at the leash and stopped in front of a battered trash can. He began pawing, scratching, and whining, behavior Frank hadn't seen since Rex's working days. "Easy, boy. What is it?" Frank muttered, confused. When Frank finally pried open the lid, the smell hit him first. Inside, beneath layers of torn trash bags, was a box. And inside that box, bones. The discovery brought a wave of flashing lights, detectives, and crime scene tape. The remains were confirmed to belong to Emily Sanders, a teenage girl who had gone missing 12 years earlier. Her disappearance had devastated the community. Posters had been stapled to every streetlight. Her mother, Linda Sanders, had begged for answers on the evening news. But no suspect was ever caught, and eventually the case went cold. Frank watched the news that night with a heavy heart. Emily's picture flashed across the screen, and Linda Sanders appeared, older, more tired, but with tears in her eyes as she whispered, "Thank you. Whoever found her, thank you for bringing my daughter home." Frank looked down at Rex lying at his feet. The dog's eyes were tired but calm, as if he knew he had done his duty once more. The discovery reopened the investigation. Detectives revisited old suspects and questioned neighbors who still lived in the area, but it was Rex who provided the breakthrough again. During another walk, Rex tugged Frank toward the same block. This time, he stopped at a shed behind one of the few occupied houses. He barked furiously, his claws digging at the wooden door. Police obtained a warrant. Inside, they found a locket engraved with Emily's initials, along with other disturbing evidence. DNA matched the homeowner, Carl Dawson, a man who had been questioned years earlier, but never charged due to lack of proof. Rex's instincts had unearthed the very trail that detectives had missed. The case shocked the town. Carl Dawson was arrested and charged with Emily's murder. During the trial, prosecutors presented the evidence, her remains, the locket, and Dawson's DNA. But what struck the courtroom most wasn't the physical evidence. It was the story of Rex, the retired 9 who refused to let the truth stay buried. Frank testified. He's been out of service for years, but Rex never stopped being a police dog. He found her because he couldn't stop looking. The jury returned a guilty verdict. Justice was finally served. When Linda Sanders was given her daughter's locket in court, she wept openly, holding it to her chest. Afterward, she asked to meet Rex. Kneeling beside him, tears in her eyes, she whispered, "You brought my baby home. You gave me peace I thought I'd never find." Rex leaned his head against her trembling hands, his eyes soft and wise. Frank faced doubts about Rex's actions. Police initially thought it was coincidence, even dismissed the idea that an old dog could lead them to evidence. There were moments when Frank himself questioned whether he was imagining Rex's instincts. The detectives faced pressure from a town that had already lost faith in the justice system. Emily's family had carried years of grief, and reopening old wounds was painful. But perseverance, trust, and the unbreakable bond between man and dog pushed them through every obstacle. Months later, Rex's health declined. He passed away peacefully in his sleep, lying at the foot of Frank's bed. At his memorial, officers lined up to salute him. Linda Sanders placed Emily's locket on Rex's collar, saying softly, "You found her, Rex, and now you'll both rest." This story isn't just about solving a crime. It's about loyalty, about how love and duty never fade, even in retirement, even in age. Rex proved that a true hero never stops being a hero. Sometimes the answers we seek come from the most unexpected places, even the paw of an old dog scratching at a trash can. The courtroom had gone silent after the guilty verdict. Justice, after 12 long years, was finally served. But for Frank, it wasn't over. And for Rex, though his body was weak, his instincts still burned like fire. After Carl Dawson's arrest, whispers spread through town. Neighbors began recalling strange incidents, knocks on doors at midnight, shadows seen near the woods, and young girls feeling followed on their way home. Frank started to wonder, was Emily Dawson his only victim? Rex seemed restless too. At night he paced near the door, ears alert as if listening to voices only he could hear. One evening, Frank drove past the old factory where many believed Dawson once worked. Rex suddenly barked, pawing at the car window, urging Frank to stop. Inside the factory ruins, Rex guided him to a cracked concrete floor. Scratching, whining, his paws left marks in the dust. Police were called again. Beneath the concrete, investigators unearthed a rusted box filled with photographs, trinkets, and journals. Evidence of more crimes, more victims whose stories had never been told. The cold case had cracked wide open. News spread like wildfire. Families of other missing women came forward, their grief resurfacing. For years, they had buried hope. Now, Rex had given them a chance at answers, but the revelations also brought anger. The community demanded to know why Dawson had slipped through the cracks for so long. Detectives faced public pressure, their every move scrutinized. Frank struggled with guilt. Could I have caught this sooner if Rex hadn't retired? But deep down, he knew the truth. Rex had done more than anyone could have ever imagined. Even behind bars, Carl Dawson refused to speak of other victims. The evidence was there, but without his confession, the timeline remained broken. That's when detectives asked Frank one last favor. Bring Rex. Ooh. The retired 9 was led into Dawson's cell during questioning. The moment Rex entered, Dawson froze, sweat beading on his forehead. The dog didn't bark. He simply stared, unblinking, steady, as though he remembered the scent from years ago. Under that silent pressure, Dawson broke down. He confessed, naming locations of victims and how he had hidden them. Rex, once again, had done what no human could. But time caught up quickly. Weeks later, Rex's health declined. His final days were spent at Frank's side, loved and honored. On the morning Rex passed, Frank sat holding his paw, whispering, "You did it, partner. You gave them peace." At the funeral, dozens of families gathered, not just Emily's, but others whose daughters had finally been found. They brought flowers, letters, and photographs, placing them beside Rex's memorial. Linda Sanders placed her daughter's locket around Rex's collar one last time. Through tears, she said, "You weren't just a hero, you were an angel." And so the story of Rex, the retired 9 who refused to stop fighting for truth, came to an end. But his legacy lived on in every family he helped, in every officer who now trusted their instincts more deeply, and in every soul who believed that no matter how dark the night, the truth will always come to light. The field felt empty without Rex. Frank walked the same path every evening, but the jingling of a leash without his partner cut deeper than any silence. Rex had gone, but his story was far from over. Word of Rex's discoveries spread beyond the small town. Newspapers called him the dog who solved the cold case. Police academies began teaching his story as a lesson in perseverance and instinct. For grieving families, Rex wasn't just a hero, he was a symbol of hope. The message was clear: no truth stays buried forever. Months after Rex's memorial, Frank was invited back to the department for a ceremony. A new class of 9 stood ready for duty, their handlers proud and nervous. The chief spoke, "Every one of these dogs will follow in Rex's paw prints." His courage has set the standard for what loyalty and service mean. Frank stepped forward, placing Rex's old collar on display in the 9 training hall. The room went silent, officers standing in respect. One afternoon, Linda Sanders visited Frank. She brought a framed photo of Emily with Rex taken during the trial. With trembling hands, she said, "I want you to have this. He didn't just give me my daughter back. He gave me peace. And I know Emily would want Rex remembered as part of our family. Forever. Family forever." Frank's eyes welled with tears as he accepted the photo, placing it on his mantle beside Rex's leash. Frank still carried guilt, wondering if Rex's instincts could have saved more lives had he not been retired. But over time, he learned to see it differently. Rex had done what no one else could. He had brought closure to families who had waited over a decade. And in doing so, he reminded Frank that heroes are not measured by how long they serve, but by the impact they leave behind. Years later, the town built a bronze statue of Rex in front of the police station. The plaque read, "Rex, a hero's duty never ends." And children placed flowers at the base, families touched the cold bronze paw, and new officers saluted as they passed by. For Frank, seeing Rex immortalized was bittersweet, but it meant his partner's spirit would never fade. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Frank stood before the statue. He placed his hand on the bronze head, whispering, "We did it, partner. They'll never forget you." Walking away, he felt the same warmth he always had when Rex was at his side. Because some bonds never break, not even in death.